One thing that will prevail is value. If the value remains there, which is what we're totally focused on, the value, we believe that if we keep providing value, if we're here providing value and we keep saying it long enough and the problems keep showing up long enough, like what's happening with the outages, there'll always be a market for us. Marketing is all about, trying to just casting your nets, in as many places. As far as it's cost efficient, of course, you're not going to do things that are not profitable, both in the moment and in the long run. But cast your nets as much as possible, because that tiny window of opportunity might show up. People are only paying for what they need. If you're paying for what you need, the service is going to be cost efficient for you in the long run.
Stephen Amagba, head of marketing at Gaimin.io. Welcome to eCoffee with Experts. Good to have you.
Hi, Austin. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here and this session to have a chat with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We're talking a lot about cloud gaming. Tell me a little bit more about what you do. Help the audience understand, because we were talking about it off camera. It felt like, there's so much that you have your hands in these days. Just tell me a little bit more and fill the audience in about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with my background, of course. As the head of marketing, I've come from a marketing background. I've been doing this for a while now. In fact, I was having a chat with you about how I started very early on creating articles for Bitcoin, right, in a very old site, BitGigs. So that's how my whole, everything about marketing, that's the point I'll say it started. It can start way before that, when I was, doing sales, in college, doing breaks, working for, companies, within my region, trying to make sales and all that. So, well, I'm going to put it, I'm going to start from there, right? The point where I started doing online marketing. And in order to create content, you need SEO, right? And my whole career, the whole thing, went into me being an SEO professional. I did it very well for a bit of time. And of course, being a very inquisitive person, trying to put more on my plate, I delved into more and more things in marketing before just add this to a point where I have my hands all over the board in marketing. And of course, I've worked with some pretty successful companies. I worked at Binance, I worked at Definity ICP. Most of my career, the highlights of my career have been in Web3. And I've had, the opportunity of working with some of the biggest companies in the space. But now I'm at gaming, right? I didn't come in as the head of marketing. In fact, I had to work up, right? I've been here for like more than 2 years now. So, and here at the gaming, you said it a lot. We're having a chat, about this. We're more of an ecosystem, right? But we're an ecosystem in the cloud business. Our business model is finding a new way to improve, revolution. I know that word is being thrown around a lot, but we're trying to revamp, find a new way of doing cloud computing. And the way we do that is because our core tenet is making the cloud decentralized. The viewers back home, depending on when you'll be watching this, quite recently we had a Cloudflare internet outage. And that's like, what? The sixth outage I can remember this year alone, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
So this brings the need for what we're doing. There's demand, there's a reason why we should do what we're doing. And we're doing it in the way of trying to decentralize the load, because with AI and everything coming on board, there's a huge load on the need for cloud. There's a huge demand for cloud, more than ever. And sometimes I really don't blame the big boys, because even when you're big at the level of AWS, Azure, GCP, the demand even Superman needs help, right? So we feel like the solution needs to be there. There needs to be a solution, whether it's going to be something that replaces or is a backup. We don't know yet, but there needs to be a way to decongest that demand to a decentralized model, and we're doing that by sourcing those devices from user end devices. That's demand from user end devices, right? So users connect their PCs to our network, forms this giant supercomputer on the cloud, and that is what we then use to service cloud demand for file storage and compute. So that's basically gaming.
Yeah. There's a lot there. Let me try and relate this back. So I came to Arizona, which is where I'm at now, and I started in solar, like selling rooftop solar for residential clients. And the big selling point there was, hey, you have these utility companies that are using this infrastructure. that's over 100 years old and it needs maintenance, and it's janky basically, and it's very expensive and it can shut down. And you'd see, one of the value propositions of getting rooftop solar was if the utility company, a power line goes down or something happens and all your neighbors' power go out, you are decentralized and you have your own source of power. Now, the
Yeah.
cool thing about that was you can, like, any power that you don't use in your house, let's say you go on vacation for a week, the sun
Mhm.
is still shining and your panels are still generating power. You send it back to the grid so your neighbors can use it and you actually
Yeah.
get paid for that. So it
Yeah.
sounds like that's kind of what, that's the concept of
Absolutely.
what you guys are doing, right? Yeah. Tell me a little bit more
In
about that.
fact, in fact, my last podcast, because I was in a podcast like 2 weeks ago, we talked about this. I likened what we are doing to the solar business, right? I mean,
Mm,
if you still want to stay, on the central grid, that's fine. But just having that option there helps, right?
yeah.
And especially when you're doing it the way we're doing it, which seems to be pretty much the way you're doing it, it comes at in a risk-free sort of environment, whether you're using it or not. Like there's even ways for you to, outsource it or just make it not be a problem for you, right? And
Mm,
that is what comes with a new technology. Like at the at very early stages, it's tailored to your needs. But that option needs to exist because we can't keep going on in a world where, especially where a world that relies on the internet being as as online as possible, like as long as possible, without even a second of downtime.
mm,
There needs to be options upon options. In fact, three options at least at every point in time because
mm.
we are that desperate at this point. So what we do, is very, very much, and is a pleasure, speaking with someone who actually has been in a similar somewhat type of industry and understands the urgency and the value for clients. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of my biggest challenges when I was in the solar industry was everybody that I talked to heard about solar. They've seen it on the rooftops, they know what it is, but they had these misconceptions and it was so difficult to enter a conversation on a good note. Like I really had to fight, I really had to work. A lot of my job was just education and dispelling myths that people have heard. What's the most challenging part about getting someone to understand what you do, and how do you communicate that to them?
Yeah, this is a very great question. I mean, coming into this space, I remember, taking up the role. I knew it was going to be hard. It's always hard to, you know, it's always hard to share, a new technology, right? To educate people because you're fighting, on two fronts. That is you first need to educate people on what's your niche is, right? What you guys are doing. Like just give them a context of where they are and where they need to be. That's the
Mm,
first part, education. And then before you even start talking of plugging yourself in the promotional part, right? So that's the biggest challenge, the education. I feel like once you're able to get the audience or the client or whoever is on the other side to understand the need, right? The problem and why there needs to be a solution and that why it needs to be that point, or why the solution has to be that point. I feel like once you have that educational barrier, broken, seeing yourself there is a lesser tax. And it's not even an easy tax, but it's lesser than, that. In fact, even in our industry, we had a seminar within our organization. We had someone from AWS. This was one of the earliest cloud salesman. When you talk of
mm,
AWS, I know AWS is big now. You see them everywhere. Trust me, it
mhm.
wasn't like that. In fact, he was telling us, that when they were going around Europe telling people about AWS, people used to think, oh, Amazon. They thought, it was Amazon delivery. So they would send them to go drop the delivery. Be like, no, this is Amazon now has a cloud, and the whole thing. And it was strange. Even when he was saying that, I could understand. And this was AWS. He was marketing something for a brand as big as Amazon. And still, it was that
Yeah.
hard. There was that friction there. But at the end of the day, one thing that will prevail is value. If the value remains there, which is what we're totally focused on, the value, we believe that if we keep providing value, if we're here providing value and we keep saying it long enough and the problems keep showing up long enough, like what's happening with the outages, there'll always be a market for us. And we're just getting ready for the opportunity and doing what we're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah. You have to be ready when the opportunity strikes. I was talking with a guest who he does marketing for auto dealerships, and he
Hmm.
was talking about when COVID hit, many auto clients stopped their marketing budget, and because nobody was driving, right? So they're like, what's the point? But he did have a few clients that continued their marketing spend through the dip, and then guess what? That foundation was laid for when the the restrictions were lifted and everybody
Mm,
wanted to drive all of the sudden,
yeah,
after 2 years, their leases were up, and the ones who continued their spend through the dip were the ones who came out on top. And
so
it's kind of like what you're saying here is even if, 90 plus percent of internet users aren't experiencing the outages, I know it's not that high, and there's far more than 10% of people who are experiencing the challenge. As you keep going and building your foundation as the people who solve that problem, when it becomes a bigger and bigger issue, you're the obvious choice to go to. How does that play in? Tell me a little bit about marketing. How does that play into the content you develop, and what channels is the content on?
yeah. So this is a great question. So right now in marketing, we have, especially with the advent of ASO, which is AI search engine, what we have found out is that just posting on our platforms is not enough. And this is
Mm,
something a lot of projects are doing. You need to be out there, right? So articles, yes, have blogs on your platform, but you also need to have your articles somewhere else on other
mm,
platform, right? Socials, yes, you can post on your platform, post on your X, post on your IG, but you need to be somewhere else, right? So this is something we have found out and we're actually actively doing right now, finding a way of putting our content, way beyond, where we are, so that at any point in time, or whatever the context may be, once that in that tiny window where the opportunity presents itself, content is there, showcasing our value, right?
mm,
In whatever capacity it is. And it's in these glaps, in these glimpses that, the main opportunity. In fact, I'm going to tell you a story. This is a story that CMO usually tells us of, some at some point in his career. So there was this company. I'm going to leave out the name, but it was a VPN company. And so, part of the effort was actually putting out blogs, right? Guest posting, right? So in the guest posts, let's say top 10 VPN, services, right? And they happen to, I mean, this is something they do every day, right? Is one strategy out of many strategies out of like, so there was nothing special about this, right?
mhm,
So they produced this article, they got the slot and they put the company there in there as, even as part of, other companies. But they, for some reason, I don't know what happened. I can't remember the details again, but that singular post just blew up, right? This,
mm,
this just an anomaly just happened. Maybe, someone went read the article, an influencer went read the article, just got that particular VPN service, tried it and saw it was good and then made a post. So I wouldn't say it was actually only the article, but I would say the article started a chain of, events that drove growth. And from that, I'm talking of a new startup. That startup at some point was clocking, was it 100K downloads, right?
mm.
1 month, monthly downloads at that period on a bad day even. So it goes to show you why, marketing, most times you look at marketing, you don't know what's gonna work. If you know
Yeah,
what's gonna
yeah.
work, right? If I knew what exactly is gonna, I would stop every other thing, right? And just focus there. Marketing is all about, trying to just casting your nets, in as many places. As far as it's cost efficient, of course, you're not gonna do things that are not profitable, both in the moment and in the long run. But cast your nets as much as possible because that tiny window of opportunity might show up. And if you're not, it might be the difference, right, when it shows up. So yeah, I actually believe, in what you said and, the need to have, these measures in place, even when it seems like nothing's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Casting the wide net. And as marketers, like there's two sides to it. There's the art and the science side, quantitative and qualitative.
Mhm.
And, we can measure the impact of our marketing through numbers, through impressions, through, click-through rates and conversions and everything like that. That's the quantitative data. But
Mm,
for you guys, for Gaimin, you really have a large community where I would imagine you can get a lot more of that qualitative feedback, what's working, what people like, how you can serve them better. How do
mm.
you approach community? What's it all about?
Yeah. So community, well, I have to tell you, firsthand, if you're a business and you're not in the business of creating good user experience, you're going to have a hard time building communities, right?
Mm,
So, and understandable, that's why most people share, most, products share away from communities. They just want to have social media where information goes one way, we distribute the information, right? So follow us on X. Whenever there's an update, we blast it out. Maybe you can have one or two comments here, but in the community, you have a group of people. It's easier for them to, form a mob action, right? But that's what makes it fun. So the main thing about community, if you're going to, do very well in terms of, community for your business or for your ecosystem or for a project is in having a good user experience, be value
Mm,
driven, right? So both in terms of the product itself and the experience within the product, right? You don't want a case where user complaints take, a lot of time. And this is something we identified earlier on. We wanted, to be in contact with people who use our product, right?
mm,
I mean, we could have easily, maintained every other platform, socials, X and whatnot, and tell them anytime you need, a solution, so submit these tickets here and whatever. But our gaming, we found out that since we wanted to be in touch with our, with the users of our product, get the feedback firsthand, we wanted to feel like they are chatting, with us. So
mhm,
that's what happens, let's say, on Discord. It's not just a support ticket email that sends and then takes 2 days to come back. And then, so we wanted to feel like, they were actually having a feel, they were in contact with us, the builders. And that helps us get, feedback firsthand from the source and, act accordingly, act immediately, and try as much as possible to provide, the best experience at that time. It's not always perfect, but it's better. And on the long run, it pays out. So I would say it's very good for those. I can recommend it for those who want to try it. Not everybody's going to try it, handle the pressure of having people all of in one place. It feels like you're raising a mob if something goes wrong. But on the long run, it helps your brand. And we've had, quite some success on our gaming side of things. In fact, we're trying to duplicate that on the cloud side, which is something we're trying to do differently from the way other cloud companies are doing it. But that's a
mm.
story for another day. So on our gaming side, for example, we've had, quite a lot of download for a company of our size. Our app has been downloaded. The gaming launch has been downloaded, I think 600K times, right?
Mm.
100K, So yeah, it's something I definitely recommend community.
Yeah, and in a community, you can't really hide, right?
Yeah.
It's like on social media, it's most of the time unidirectional. Like you said, you can maybe get a couple comments here and there,
Yeah.
but the main factor for clients to stay retained, let's say it's a marketing agency, the number one factor that a client will consider when it comes to like should I renew is the relationship. It's not even the ROI. They're looking for do they have a strong relationship with their agency and can they trust them?
Yeah.
And like you're saying, a community is a great way to do that because you're a human. They're not just
Yeah.
talking to an entity, even
Yeah.
though LLMs, ChatGPT, entity marketing is becoming more and more relevant. And then within the community, you can take the feedback that you get and create content out of it.
Yeah.
And we know that LLMs, ChatGPT, are picking up user generated content a lot more and they're putting heavier weight on that than like scripted curated content.
Yeah.
How do you extract or do you points from your community and then create content out of that? Is there a process?
Yeah, so in fact, this is something we are trying to do heavily. You made mention of something, very important, how AI models, LLMs are kind of prioritizing user content. In fact, if I'm going to say the main difference right now between SEO and ASO is just that
Mm,
SEO might be about how SEO optimized your article is, but ASO is how good people are talking about you, right? And that's why ChatGPT, for example, OpenAI prefers Reddit, Reddit posts, right? So feedback coming from Reddit does like genuine user comments and user opinion about a product or a service, right? When it wants to recommend.
mm,
So I'd say we're trying to replicate that heavily on our cloud side. Reddit is now a huge part of our strategy, especially with regards to community building, trying to talk to people about cloud, right? And first of all, for just get the narrative of this new way of cloud out there, right? The problem that exists for those, many people don't even know, they are not problem aware even because there's various stage as a marketer you have been told there's a problem aware, there's a solution aware. So they're not even problem aware, right?
mm,
The new way of cloud will not only be more reliable, but also cheaper for them. No egress
mm.
fees and whatnot. we're using, and the feedback, the way we create content is coming directly from, our partners, people we have actually given up, our products to try on alpha. And then we're using not just that feedback to build the products right now, which is what we're reiterating, but also using that to create content in terms of these are the problems that we have spoken with people, like you, and they have this problem. This problem is this. This is what we're building, right? And we're
Mm,
putting out not in the traditional way. We're talking to communities, trying to activate that part of people that talks about a problem more, and then the solution. We actually present ourselves as a solution. So yes, the community feedback is helping us a lot in terms of not just product building. People think of community feedback only in terms of the feedback that helps them build the product. That's good. That's great. But it also helps in content. And we're doing it, we're doing it a lot now, especially on our cloud side.
Yeah, so you have two sections of the business. You have the gaming side and the cloud side, and it sounds like the gaming side is maybe more established, and the cloud side is building quickly. And you were telling me about launching a new website or migrating to a new website. And cloud is correct me if I'm wrong. Cloud is not as sexy as gaming, so
Yeah.
like the uptake may be a little bit more difficult because I would imagine it's harder to create content for
Mm.
one than the other. Tell me about your main acquisition strategy right now. You were mentioning something about partnerships, and I wonder what that means to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially cloud is the cloud business is very, very much different from gaming. In fact, when as the head of marketing, when making plans for the cloud side, it's almost like I'm switching two different personalities, right?
Yeah.
The audience who you're speaking to, like on cloud, you have this business like kind of audience, right? In
Mhm.
fact, except when you're, doing, content campaigns for the community strategy I just talked about. Aside from that, you're talking to a specific person, the average CTO, and you have to speak in that tone, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So yeah, so the cloud side is not that is not that exciting to talk about, and that's why you really need to tailor your strategies to that audience. So I would say what has been helping us very much lately is the ability to speak to various types of audience, right? Knowing that our cloud side of business is very, very much different from our gaming side, right?
Mm.
And then you made mention of partnerships. Now, right now, we're in the core building stages, right? We could just launch, a very substandard cloud business and cloud products out there and just pray that works. But every day we are iterating our solution based on the feedback we're getting and the problems, because the problem itself is also evolving every day, right? So, for example, we have our alpha. For those, you made mention of, us, revamping and, launching our cloud product to Urban Cloud, which is what's going to call now. So for the first version of that product, the alpha of that iteration, we're only going to be putting it out. The alpha is going to be available for 100 clients, right?
Mm.
And they're going to test it for, risk free. And the whole goal of that test is, okay, for a while now we've been in cave mode building. Let's see if this iteration actually solves, because right now we want this iteration to solve the cost problem. Let's see if it solves, it brings down your cost by 60% or even 80%, right? For
Mm.
these 100 people, right? So you see the approach, how the approach is different from, let's say, what would have been a mass marketing on the gaming side. You put a blaster, you put a campaign, and people come connect their PCs and then go share. So here on the cloud side, you'll be more surgical, right? Whereas on the
Mm.
gaming side, you're doing more of mass marketing. So that's what I'll say is the two different approaches we're taking on either side.
I mean, I think that can work to your advantage, right? I mean, you're introducing a I don't think it's manufactured, but you're introducing a limit, scarcity, and
Yeah.
probably some exclusivity in there like, hey, you have to these are the requirements
Mm.
for working with alpha or I mean, is that what you would call it? Like for
Yeah. So
yeah, yeah. So it sounds like it's working to your benefit where you're getting higher quality customers, you're able to, iterate faster. Maybe there's a community aspect to that as well.
yeah, there is.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So yeah, so of course, one thing we have tried to do is, I mean, a community. Most times, people think everybody in the community has to be a client, for example, right?
Mm.
So, but not in, let's say in a typical tech community, which is what you find, on the cloud side. could have contributors, right? People who
Mm,
contribute, people who's, there could be people who, just share the word. Oh, this technology is very interesting. You need to try this out. There are going to be
mm,
people like that. In fact, most time, if you're going to do this successfully, 60%, of your community needs to be contributors or people who share the word about your technology, right? Even if, the clients, the revenue drivers are 10%, if you have a good, deal flow per each individual client, I feel like you'll be okay, right? But we don't just want to do that. We're doing that, of course, trying to be surgical in terms of who we introduce our technology to in these early stages, so that we are speaking to the right people who are solving their problems, so that we take the feedback from those people and retrade the products, retrade the content, just trying to understand the whole problem and how we are building the solution and how everything is evolving every day on one hand. On the other hand, we also want to have an active community of contributors and people who actually understand that this problem exists. We need to talk about it and get the word out to others to adopt a new solution. So
mm.
that exists also on the cloud side, while the surgical client selection is also ongoing.
Yeah. Do you have some sort of like a freemium model or like a, a lesser, like a light version and then, a premium or an upgraded version?
Yeah, so of course, for now, the focus we like taking things a step at a time. Of course, based on the feedback we'll get after the alpha test, which is going to be early Q1 of this new year in
Mm,
2026, we are going to determine the pricing model based on what is suited best for the community. We've tried a couple of things. We've tried freemium, a month. Okay, we started a freemium model. You try for months and then you elapse, the initial credits elapse and then you go to a premium model, the classic freemium model, and
mhm,
then we went to pay as you go, right?
mhm,
So it's been a lot of things in terms of pricing models, and it's been changing because of, we're trying to figure something that works out for, the audience. So we are still not, decided on what this is going to be, but basically the pricing, whatever is going to be in a way that ensures minimum waste. So if you're in the cloud business, anyone in the cloud business would know this. A lot of times people pay for what they don't use. In fact,
mm,
that's a bigger problem for people than, those who know this. Most an amateur will look at the price. Oh, this is good. I only pay $10, per month or $100 per month. That's not the way it works, in cloud. You could
mm,
have an agreement or an arrangement or a pricing for $100, but you could see your bill going the like way more than that because of egress.
mm,
So that's how the industry works. So we figured out that that's a problem that needs to be solved. So whatever pricing model needs to focus on making sure that people are only paying for what they need. If
mm.
you're paying for what you need, the service is going to be cost efficient for you in the long run. Trust me, it's going to be. We don't want to do it the way the traditional clouds are doing, and it works in advantage. I mean, why would they change it? It means more money revenue.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
of course. So yeah, the pricing model will be determined. However, it's going to be. It might be that we, introduce something different, something unique in our case. But whatever it's going to be, at the end of the day, have be tailored so that the client pays for absolutely what they use and what they need. Mm.
Yeah, and you're building trust over a long term when you help the prospects understand, maybe what a ripoff or what the risks are of going with a competitor. That's a great way to build trust and like, yeah, that's the real value proposition, right?
Exactly.
Is yeah, exactly. Pay as you go, and
Mm.
obviously that influences your content strategy and like the positioning and the approach and everything. So, man, it's yeah, it's what an exciting time to be alive and to be involved in Web3, gaming, cloud. Yeah. And it's only going to become more and more popular as things go on. So, Stephen, thank you for being here. Where can we find out more about you and about gaming?
Of course, yeah, on LinkedIn. So, I have my LinkedIn account, Stephen Amagba. That's my same name. You can connect with me if you want, anyone watching this. And then for gaming, you can learn all about gaming on our Linktree. I'm pretty sure Austin would attach it, somewhere here. It's Linktree Gaming IO. like Gaimin_IO. And of course, we have various sites, the cloud. But if you're if you found what I said in the section very interesting and you want to check out our cloud, it's opencloud.com. If you are someone, let me just take, a few seconds and spell this out. If you're
Sure.
someone who basically wants to get their time and money back, right? You have something about your cloud bills and the amount of effort you're putting managing your cloud's S3 environment is looking way off, then you should try to be in the in the wait list for the alpha. Because what
Mm.
we're trying to do is we're trying to select 100 people, 100 client CTOs or whatever, and trying to adapt this use case for them with our autonomous solution, which we're launching very soon. We'll try it out. And if it solves your problem, I mean, you can make the decision. I'm not going to say you buy or you make the decision from there. Of course, if you see something that solves your problem, you can take it up. You can take the next step. So you can check us out. Join the wait list on urbancloud.com, ORBON.com, urbancloud, urbancloud.com. Join the wait list. And yeah, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be very exciting. We're doing something very, very new, a very, very new way of running the cloud. And the cloud is basically everything we run on. We're having this call thanks to Riverside's cloud solution. Austin is in the US and I'm in the UK, and we're able to have this. So pretty interesting technology. Look out for that.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. I hope people take you up on it, and yeah, all the best, man. All great. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Thanks, Austin.
You
Thanks for
got
the
it.
opportunity to, given to me to speak to the audience. I really
For
appreciate that.
sure. Was great to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.